Dr. T.V. Geeta, Professor, Department of Computer Science, College of Engineering, Guindy, Anna University. Her special interest, Artificial Intelligence and Natural Language. She has published more than 143 articles in national and international journals. She has guided around 7 PhD students. She has got Young Scientist Award from Government of Tamil Nadu in the year 2000, Chief Minister's Special Mention Award in the year 2002, and Woman of Excellence by Rotary Club in the year 2003.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series. In this lecture, we are going to talk about concurrency, and concurrency is very important when we are talking about multiple users using the database systems. So, the objectives of this lecture are to understand the need for concurrency and to outline the typical problems that are associated with concurrency and the concurrency control mechanisms that are used to tackle these problems, and to understand the different levels of locking and to explain briefly the locking protocol. Concurrency. Now, databases tend to be shared by many people, and so there are many transactions to be run on the database at the same time, and it is desirable to run them at the same time as each other. So, it is not that they should be run separately, they should be run concurrently. But remember the acid properties of databases, which said that isolation is very important. So, we need to preserve this isolation. If we do not allow concurrency, then transactions have to run sequentially, which means that there will be a queue of transactions, and there will be long transactions which will make very long transactions like backups, which will make other transactions wait for long periods, and this will lead to lot of bottlenecks. So, in order to run transaction concurrently, we must interleave their operations. Remember, transaction consists of a set of operations or list of operations. Each transaction in turn will get its share of computing time, and then it has to wait. So, this leads to several types of problems: lost updates, uncommitted updates, and incurrent analysis. All these problems arise if isolation is broken. So, the lost update, let us explain the lost update problem. So, you have this T1 reading x, and you have x minus 5 and writing x. Now, here T2 is reading x is equal to x plus y and writing x. Now, this commit and you have this commit. Now, if T1 and T2 read x and both modify it, then both write it out. Now, the net effect of T1 and T2, there should be no change to x, but if T2's change only can be seen. So, the final value of x will be whatever T2 is telling, and it will be increased by 5. Let us assume this is 100. Now, here you have 100 minus 5, which is 95, and this read x, T2 reads this x, so that you get 95, and then x is equal to x plus 5, but this read is write is happening later. So, this also will read it as 100 plus 5, 105. So, this will write it as 95, this will write it as 105, but this is the last commit seen. So, 105 will be seen. So, that is the typical last update problem. Let us take another example and see what happens. Now, if you take T1 and you have T2, and this is the value of x. So, read x 7, x is read as 7, and x is equal to x minus 5 is 2, but you are reading x again, which is again 7, and then you have x is 2 here, but actually you read 7. X is equal to x plus 5 is 12, and then you write x 2. Now, you write x here, which is 12. So, what happens? You are left with a value of x, which is 12. So, that is one typical problem, which is called as the update that has happened has not been reflected. This is why it is called a last update problem. Now, you have another example, which is the uncommitted update problem. So, now what happens here is T2 sees a change in x, everything has been written. So, T2 reads that change, but T1 meanwhile has rolled back. So, suppose I have 100 is equal to 95 and 95 is written. Now, T2 will read 95 and add 5 to it and make it 100. But what happens is after this write operation, rollback has happened. So, x's actual value now is 100 only and not 95. So, that is the problem. So, T2 sees a change to x made by T1, but T1 is rolled back. The change made by T1 is undone by the rollback, and so it will be changed as though it never happened. Now, let us look at the values. So, 7 is the value, read x. So, now it has been written as 2. So, it will read 2, it will do the operation, and then it will write At this point it is rolled back. So, actually it should have been 12. Now, actually because this has been rolled back, the original value is 7, 7 plus 5 is 12, but what happens is it is 7. Okay. So, that is about what is called as uncommitted update. That is, you have done an update, you have read and done an update, but that update has not been committed, it is rolled back. So, that is called as uncommitted update. Then you have the third example, which is very important, is the inconsistent analysis. Now, what happens here is T1 reads x and writes x, T2 reads y and reads x and y and puts a sum, but meanwhile T1 has changed. So, T1 consists of two parts, it takes 5 from x and then adds 5 to y. T2 sees the effect of the first, but it does not see the effect of the second. So, this is called as inconsistent analysis. Now, just to remind you again, you have three basic problems. One is the last update problems, where the read operation is done and this second read operation is done before this write operation is updated. So, that is the uncommitted last update. Uncommitted update, read and write is done, but then after that this is rolled back, but since the read and write is done, this reads a new value. So, this is uncommitted update, and so that is what we explained in this example. And then we have inconsistent analysis, where T1 consists of two parts, x and y, x is seen and y is not seen. So, in order to tackle these problems, we have to go for what is called as concurrency control. So, a program that changes data in tables as an atomic unit of work is called transaction, and concurrency control allows flow in a multi-user database. So, concurrency control is about managing and maintaining data integrity, and it is related directly to transactions. So, CPU can control one instruction at a time, CPU is switching between instructions, therefore, a portion of each transaction is performed at a time. The actions that must be taken to ensure that data integrity is maintained are called as concurrency control actions. So, let us look at this. You have multi-user environments, uses many users are there, and it may affect the integrity. So, transaction needs to be complete, durable, serialized and isolated. So, there are 4 types of problem. A reads the last updates, that is, A reads a row from database, B reads a row from database, A updates based on read values, B updates based on read values, overwriting A's work. So, A update value in database, B read value, A rolls back, change is not committed. So, it performs calculation based on the uncommitted value, and now that is an incorrect value. So, non-repeatable reads is another problem. So, application A reads row from database and goes on to other SQL commands. Application B modifies or deletes the row and commits the changes. Now, application A tries to read the row again. It either receives a modified row or maybe it discovers deletion. And you have a very important problem, another problem called phantom read. So, the application A executes a query that reads a set of rows based on some search criteria. Another query inserts new data into the updates existing or updates existing data, and this will not satisfy the query now. So, you have read something that satisfies the query and given the output, but meanwhile another query is inserting the data. So, this is called as phantom read. Application A has to repeat the query from step 1, and when it does that, some additional phantom rows are returned because of this change. You have last updates. When A reads a row, B reads a row, A updates on read values while B updates on its read value, overwriting A's work. And then you have the concurrency 2, which is called as uncommitted data, and non-repeatable reads and phantom read. So, these are the 4 concurrency problems. So, what is the solution to all these problems? That is the next question. So, the common method to control concurrent transaction is the concept of locking. So, locking means locking a set of data to one transaction so that other transaction cannot use them. So, more correctly, a lock is a variable that is associated with a set of data that specifies the state of the data and with respect to operations possible with that set. So, lock is actually what? It locks a data, and what you are going to do is, if a lock is set on a data, it tells you that certain things are only possible with this data, you can't do everything with this data. For example, let us look at a non-locking example. Here I have John, he reads the account balance as 1000 and he withdraws 200. So, the balance is 800 and he writes the account balance is equal to 800. Now, Jenny she reads the read account balance, she sees thousands and withdraws 300. Now, the balance left is 700 and the write account balance is 700. Now, here you have 800, you have 700 in the same account balance, and this is not possible, there is an error. So, let us look at this from a locking example viewpoint. So, he does everything. So, he locks the account balance and reads the account, withdraws it, writes it and then unlocks. Now this time Jenny is asking for a account balance, but she will be denied the account balance until the account balance is unlocked by John. So, only after this unlocking happens can Jenny lock the account balance, and then she read the account balance which is now 800 and withdraw 300, which will be 500, and it will write the the account balance and it will unlock it. So, this is a typical locking example. Now, one way to ensure serializability is to require data items to be accessed in a mutually exclusive manner. So, one transaction is accessing a data item, no other transaction can modify that data item. So, that is mutually exclusive, and the method to do this mutual exclusion for this particular type of situation is called as locking. So, what exactly is this locking? Now, locking aims to prevent problems in order to use a resource, a table. Now, this resource can be a table, a data item, a row, whatever. Transaction must first acquire a lock on that resource, and locking protocols say how this is done. So, basically there are two types of locks: shared lock, S lock or read lock, and exclusive lock, X lock or write lock. The lock manager in DBMS assigns locks and records them in the data dictionary. So, what is a lock based algorithm? A lock is a mechanism to control concurrent access to a data. So, when I am doing some operation on a data item, that data item will be locked, which means that other people cannot access this data to do update operations or something. So, this is a mechanism to control concurrent access to a data item. So, data item can be locked in two modes. One is called the exclusive mode or X mode, and data item can be both read as well as written when it is in this mode. X lock is requested using lock X instruction. Similarly, you have something a little bit weaker, which is called a shared mode or S mode, and data here with this lock you can only read an item, and X lock is requested using a lock S instruction. Now, you have some aspect of things called a lock compatibility matrix. The idea here is, now if you have A and B in lock modes, now suppose this is A and this is B. Now, A has an S lock, B can be given the S lock, that is both can read simultaneously. If A has an S lock, B cannot be given a X lock. If A has an X lock, S cannot be given to B, and A has an X block, that is the exclusive lock, then B cannot be given. Okay. So, if A and B represent lock modes, if Tj holds a lock B on item Q and Ti requests a lock A mode on item Q, if Ti can be granted a lock on Q, we say that mode A is compatible with mode B. So, that is basically what this matrix shows. If this is A and this is B, what happens? So, only time either that B is not holding the data item, or it means that it is only holding a read lock or shared lock. Now, access data. To access data item, transaction, every access to a data item, the transaction must lock the data item. So, you have three locks. One is lock SQ for shared lock, that is when you do this, what happens is it allows the transaction to read the data Q. Lock X means an exclusive lock. This allows the transaction to either read or write or update the data item Q. And then unlock Q means you are unlocking so that others can acquire the lock. If data is already unlocked by another transaction in an incompatible mode, the concurrency control manager will not grant the lock unless it is released. So, then in which case the transaction that asks for this lock will be in a wait state. What is a lock based protocol? Every transaction requests a lock in an appropriate mode on data item Q. Depending on the types of operation, it will perform on Q. So, when transaction Ti requests a lock mode X on item Q which is locked by Tj. If the lock mode is compatible mode, Ta can be granted a lock on Q. So, only if that compatibility is, remember compatibility will be there only if both want only shared locks. So, now we will go back, we will discuss lock based protocol in detail, but for now let us take a small break. Welcome back after the break. Now let us before the break we were talking about lock based protocols. Now let us talk again. Now remember there were two types of locks, one is the S lock or the shared lock and X lock or the exclusive lock. Now if the any transaction holds a shared lock on a data item, any number of other transactions can also hold a shared lock. But if a transaction holds an exclusive lock on an item, then no other transaction can hold any lock on the item. So, if a lock cannot be granted because someone else is using that lock, has locked it with an exclusive lock, the requesting transaction is made to wait till all the incompatible locks held by other transactions have been released, only then this lock can be granted. So, let us take an example. Now, this is a transaction T2 and you are having a shared lock on A. Before you do any read operation, you have to get a shared lock. So, you get a shared lock on A, read that data item, unlock it, then you are again locking shared lock on B, you are reading and then you are unlocking and they are displaying A plus B. So, simple, if you want to do read, get a lock S or a shared lock. Now, locking as above is not sufficient to guarantee serializability. If A and B get updated in between, the read of A and B, the displayed sum would be wrong. So, a locking protocol is a set of rules followed by all transactions while requesting and releasing locks. Locking protocols restrict the set of possible schedules. Let us look at some of the pitfalls or disadvantages of lock based. Now, consider the partial schedule like this. Now, lock X B, that means exclusive, you read B, then you do this operation and write B. Now, you are locking shareable locking on A, read A and then you lock yes B and lock X A. Now, neither T3, now the problem here is you are asking for a shared lock of B, but this T3 holds a exclusive lock on B. So, B cannot be given, this lock cannot be sanctioned to T4. Now, here what happens is, this is one group. Now, here this person has taken a lock on A, shared lock, it cannot get this T3 cannot get X. Now, what happens, T3 will never finish because it cannot get this X lock on A, and at the same time unless B finishes. Now, B cannot finish because this fellow is holding a lock. This situation, neither T3 or T4 can make progress. Executing log S B causes T4 to wait for T3 to release its lock on B, while executing lock X A causes T3 to wait for T4 to release. That is what I was telling. So, such a situation is called deadlock, and to handle deadlock, one of T3 or T4 must be rolled back and its locks released. Then there is another problem which is also you come across in what is called as operating system, which is called starvation. Starvation is also possible if concurrency control manager is badly designed. For example, a transaction may be waiting for an X lock of an item, while a sequence of other transaction request and are granted an S lock on the same item. The same transaction is repeatedly rolled back due to deadlocks. So, concurrency control manager has to decide to operate in such a way that starvation is prevented. So, we go for what is called as two-phase locking. So, this is a new type of locking to avoid these problems that we saw in the previous two slides. So, the mere presence of lock does not guarantee serializability. Locking only guarantees this if serializability if it is in two-phased. So, that is all locks that are going to be opened do so before they are closed. If all transactions obey the two-phase locking protocol, then all possible interleaved executions are guaranteed to be serializable. What is this two-phase locking protocol? This is a protocol which ensures conflict serializable schedules. It has two phases, growing phase and shrinking phase. Growing phase, transactions are allowed to obtain locks and transactions are not allowed to release any locks, and in the shrinking phase, transaction can release locks, but under no and it is not however allowed to obtain locks. So, the protocol assures serializability. It can be proved that the transaction can be serialized in the order of their lock points, the point where a transaction occurs a final lock. Two-phase locking does not ensure freedom from deadlocks, however. The two-phase, the cascading rollback is possible under two-phase locking. To avoid this, follow a modified protocol called strict two-phase locking. Here a transaction must hold all its exclusive locks till it commits or aborts. What we are trying to say here is that a transaction it has two phases, a growing phase and shrinking phase. Growing phase, it acquires all the locks, shrinking phase, it releases all the locks. Now, here we are putting an additional constraint that it will hold all the exclusive locks till it commits or aborts. This ensures that any data written by uncommitted transaction are locked in an exclusive mode until that transaction is commits. This prevents any other transaction from reading the data. So, a transaction, if it has an exclusive lock, will keep the exclusive lock until the operation has been committed, only then it allows other transaction to read. Then there is something called a strictest one, and then you have something called rigorous two-phase locking. Here all the locks are held, that is not only exclusive lock, both shared and exclusive lock are held either until either the transaction is committed or aborted. In this protocol, transaction can be serialized in the order in which they commit. Two-phase locking protocol has the following lock conversions also. So, now in the first phase, that is the growing phase, the transaction can acquire a lock S on an item, it can acquire lock X on an item, it can also convert an S into an X. Okay. Second phase, it can release a lock S, it can release a lock X, it can convert a lock X to a lock S, that is, it can downgrade. So, upgrade takes place in the growing phase only, downgrading can take place in only the shrinking phase. This protocol assures that serializability, but still relies on the programmer to insert correctly where the lock instructions should come. Transaction TI ensures standard read-write instruction without explicit locking calls. So, here the operation read is processed as follows: if TI has a lock on D, then read D. If necessary, wait until no other transaction has a lock X on D, grant TI, a lock SI on DI, read D. Now, write D is processed as if TI has a lock X on D, then write D, else begin. If necessary, wait until no other transaction has any lock on D. This is about acquiring the lock, this is about releasing. So, if TI has a lock S on D, then upgrade lock on D to lock X, else grant TI a lock X on D and write D. So, these all the locks are released after commit or an abort. Now, let us look at a TPL example or two-phase locking protocol example. TI is two-phased, all the locks are acquired before it releases any of them. So, here you have an S lock, X lock, unlock X, then unlock Y. Okay. Now, T2 is not, it releases its lock on X and then goes on later to acquire lock on Y. TI follows 2PL protocol, all the locks are acquired before it releases any of them. It releases its lock on X and then goes on later to acquire lock on Y. Now, look at this: read lock X, read X, write lock Y, unlock X, read Y, and write and unlock. So, here this is so here you are reading one before the unlock occurs. Here you are reading, unlocking, writing, reading, writing and unlocking. Let us show how last update cannot happen with 2PL. So, I read X, X equal to X minus 5, then I read X, X equal to X plus 5. Now, I write X. Now, when I write here, I cannot write because this is holding. So, I will wait and then I will do the write X and then commits. So, read lock X, read lock X, cannot acquire write lock X. Okay. T2 has read lock, so read lock X. So, therefore, you cannot acquire the write lock. This cannot acquire write lock X because T1 has a read. So, this way that does not happen. Now, uncommitted update, let us see how it does not happen. So, you read and write and you read and write. Now, read lock X is here, write lock X is here, wait till T1 releases write lock X and then the locks are released here. And then in inconsistent analysis, what happens is read lock, write lock, wait till T1 releases write locks on X and Y. Here it is read, here it is right and so on. So, how do we fix the uncommitted update? You write an slogs x and then an x logs because you want to write. Now, slogs x is asked, but it waits and then the logs are released and now it can get the x log and commit. So, similarly s logs x log. Now, here there is a waiting happening. Now, here there is an s log and an x log, the logs are released now. So, this way you keep on acquiring logs as you go along. The log management, lock and unlock requests are handled by the log manager. It has a table where it holds the number of transactions currently holding a log and the type of log that it holds, like whether it is shared or exclusive, and you have a pointer to the queue of log requests. Locking and unlocking have to be atomic operations. So, lock upgrade transaction that holds a shared log can be upgraded to hold an exclusive log. So, it allows data items of various sizes. Now, it is not now up to now we have been talking as though you can lock only a data item, okay, but that is not true. You can have multiple granularity locking. So, allows data item to be of various sizes and you can have a hierarchy. Now, this is what is important, you can have a hierarchy of data granularities where the small granularities will be nested in the higher ones. So, it can be graphically represented as a tree. When a transaction locks a node in the tree explicitly, it implicitly locks all the nodes descendants in the same mode. So, suppose I will show you the diagram. If you lock this with some x log, all these things will be locked with that. With this in mind, so when a transaction locks a node in the tree explicitly, implicitly locks all the nodes descendants in the same mode. So, granularity of locking, fine granularity, low in the tree, high concurrency, high locking overhead. Coarse granularity will be the roots or the branch nodes in the tree, and low locking overhead, low concurrency. So, look at this as an example, and locking is the extent of the database resources. So, for example, you can lock an entire database, you can lock a table, you can lock a page, you can lock a row, you can lock an attribute. This attribute is generally not done because it is overhead. In addition to S and X lock modes, there are 3 additional lock modes associated with multiple granularity. One is called intention shared, that means indicates explicit locking at a lower level of the tree, but only with shared locks. Intention exclusive indicates explicit locking at a lower level with exclusive or shared locks. And then you have shared and intention exclusive, which is called as 6. The subtree rooted by that node is locked explicitly in the shared mode, and explicit locking is being done at lower levels with exclusive mode. So, intention locks allow a higher level to be locked in S or X mode without having to check all the descendant nodes. That is what we were doing. So, this is the compatibility matrix of this. Now, you have, if you look here, this is intention shared, intention exclusive, and then you have the shared lock, the normal, and this you have both together, and with this you have the compatibility. So, here you see these are not compatible. So, there is a lot of things you can do together. In this lecture, we have explained concurrency and typical problems associated with it. We have outlined concurrency control mechanism, and we have discussed different levels of locking, and that is the root node and its children and so on. And we have explained the two-phase locking protocol in detail. So, what I want you to do as exercises, explain the different levels of locking, and I want you to understand what you mean by concurrency control, and explain the two-phase locking algorithm in detail, and explain the phantom read phenomenon. Thank you.